Okay, we're going to hear from one more brilliant speaker in this session, then we're going to have a break for a while. So we're going to hear next from Sophie Mather from Biov8tion. Sophie started research on microfiber release, so we're going to talk microplastics now, from a crowdfunding campaign, #Don'tFeedTheFish. The campaign supported entry-level funds and cross-industry support for kick-starting ground-level research for textile engineering research. Sophie's going to give us an update on that, tell us where she is now, and she's going to talk to us about fabric innovation to stop microplastics. Please welcome Sophie to the stage.
Hi there, thank you very much. Okay, so I'm an innovator. And I'm a self-confessed textile nerd, actually. I love textiles. I've worked in the industry for a long time. But in 2016, I was seeing a topic that was emerging that I felt I had a responsibility for. Microfibers were coming out of our clothes, and the big brands weren't really paying much attention to it. It was a unseen, it was an invisible problem that was happening. But the first brand to really sit up and look at what I was doing was Finisterre. And so from 2016, Finisterre have supported the work that I've been doing at the textile engineering level. And today I'm just going to take you through a little bit of that journey and also encourage you to have a look at the display at the back to kind of understand what's happening. And I've got props as well. I don't really go anywhere without my box of props. So excuse me while I duck down every now and again and get samples out. So textiles is only one industry that contributes to microplastics in our ocean, and you can see some shocking figures there on the screen. So, you know, up to 0.94 million tons of microplastics are released into our ocean every year. And I represent an industry that contributes towards that. So you can see the figures are quite different there. So between 0.018 and 0.046. So these are estimates based on the best information we can get hold of. But to me, it doesn't really matter how big or how small this contribution from the clothing industry is. If we as an industry can actually make the change for the better and stop fibres from washing out of our clothes into our oceans or into our air, then we have a responsibility to do that. And I think that's what really frustrated me when I first started to get involved in this, is there was a lot of people that were looking at me and saying, well, we don't produce polyester or we don't produce fleece, you know, it's not my problem. Actually, it is. It's everybody that works in the clothing industry. It's their problem, and it's for us to actually solve it. Sorry, it does get a bit more positive, so bear with me. So, sorry, there's a zero missing off there. It should be 300,000 billion US dollars of product is the global value of the clothing industry. So you can see it's phenomenal. It's a massive industry. And between 2005 and 2017, we saw an 80% increase in clothing consumption in the UK alone. If we just have a few fibres that come off each garment that we wear, and we multiply that by the growth that the industry is actually going through at the moment, we have got a major issue on our hands, okay? But there is light at the end of the tunnel, which I will get to. Also, just to make you aware, there's a lot of conversation at the moment about the fibres that are washing off in our washing machines at home. You know, and that's something that we can see as customers, as consumers, and people that wear product, wear clothing. We understand that. But what I see is behind the scenes. You know, I spend a lot of my time in factories, and for all the fibres that are coming out in our domestic washing machines, you can imagine the scale of the issue that's happening at the supplier level as well. Okay, so I see this as a three-part problem, or not a three-part problem, a three-part approach. At the top there, you've got the measurement, the kind of short term. So when this issue started to become very, people were very aware of it, there was a lot of measurement going on by environmentalists, by different industries, so they could really start to gain an understanding of the actual scale of this problem. And that was really necessary. And in any innovation, we need to have an ability to measure it and know what the problem is. After that, what we saw, and again in 2016, a lot of the conversation was around, okay, great, let's capture it. Let's point the finger at the washing machine companies and at the detergent companies and wastewater plants and get them to capture all this fibre that's coming off. And again, I felt a responsibility that my industry wasn't really doing enough, because it's not just about catching it, we need to stop it in the first place. But what that middle layer did, that kind of medium term, is it really got awareness to general consumers. So that was really, really important, and it's really helped me in the work that I do. But I think the longer term, and this is where I sit, to me, we need to start to look at prevention measures. We need to stop this from happening in the first place. And I think it needs to be a combination of measurement, capture, and preventing, and we can do that through textile engineering to make this future so much better for all of us. So it was a very complicated topic. When I first started talking to people, they would look at me like, with astonishment, and it was just like panic, despair, and fear in their faces. It's like, what can we do? There were so many different parts of this. Do we speak to yarn producers? Do we speak to fabric producers? And nobody knew what to do. There was a lot of finger pointing, and it's not my problem, it's their problem, or let them do it. So it was unconstructive, and we needed to turn that round very, very quickly. Thank you. We'll get onto the wall. That's hilarious. I've never been heckled by a sheep before. Sorry. Let me just compose myself. Anyway, so we got from that real complex area of all this stuff going on, and we didn't really know what was happening. And I felt we needed to break it down into bite-sized pieces that the industry could really start to grasp hold of. So I created, with some great volunteers that were working with me at the time, this great infographic to really break it down step by step so people could understand what their part in this process is and how they can make change and who the people are that they need to talk to. So in the middle, the blue T-shirt represents garments. It represents clothing, or it represents the home industry. So it could be a sofa, a pair of curtains, it could be a T-shirt or a beautiful Finisterre wool product. It doesn't matter what it is, it represents the product in the middle. All the bubbles that go around the outside represent the various different stages that we have to go through in the industry to get from raw material, and that was where they were meant to come in on that point with the wool. It comes from raw material all the way through to spinning yarn, making fabric, colouring the fabric, finishing it, etc. And what I do now is I work right across all those different stakeholders to make sure that we're doing the best thing we possibly can at each stage so we can make that product in the middle without having any microfibers coming out. On the left-hand side, you'll see three bubbles, the detergent and the laundry industry, wastewater, and environmental and social. And a lot of people this morning have been asking me questions about what I'm doing in these areas. I'm not doing anything. I'm aware of what they're doing, and there's a whole teams of people working in those areas. But I feel as a textile expert, my time needs to be around the textile manufacturing area. So that's what I'm working on. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to go into a few bits of these areas just to help you understand what change we can actually make. So here I've got two examples of raw material, and I know a lot of people in the room are going to say, no, it's polyester, which here on the right-hand side, and these will be on the table later so you can have a closer look. These are polyester chips, and this is what goes into making polyester products, so like sportswear and things like that. And then on the left-hand side here, I've got beautiful fleece from the Beaumont Merino fleece that you can see at the back here, which is beautiful wool product. So they're both raw materials, and at both of these levels, we can actually make engineering changes to modify how these perform. So how they perform in many different ways, but including how much microfiber actually comes off, okay? So that's the first thing that we're doing. Okay, but I think what's important is as I go through all these different areas here is understanding the connectivity between each one of these activities because they are all really interrelated. And I think we're all here in the tent today, we're all real true ambassadors of sustainability in the whole entirety. So not just microplastics and microfibers, but what we don't want to be doing is doing something really good for microfibers and then finding it has some impact on, something else, energy use or waste or whatever. So by coming back to this circle all the time, we're just keeping a check on the big picture. I need an assistant here with all my props. The next one we're going to go into is fibre. And I've got some very kind of geeky scientific images on the desk that I want you to have a look at, because this is the first research I did with Don't Feed the Fish. Is the when we raised some crowdfunding and we got the work started, we were really starting to understand what was happening to these fibres as they were going under consumer wear. So as we were wearing them, what was happening? And these images here just show how the fibres are breaking, and they're breaking differently at different stages. And from this sort of information, I can work with the suppliers in the factories, and we can actually say, oh, it's breaking like this, so therefore we can modify it in this sort of way. And so that's what I mean about textile engineering. Okay, the next one we're going to go into is yarn. And again, looking at the wool versus the polyester. We've got a polyester here, filament, which is very long and thin and strong. And then we've got the wool-based one here, which is shorter fibres, and they're kind of twisted together to give them the strength. So you can understand the different characteristics going into them, but also we can engineer again, the modifications to make them stronger or softer or lighter in different sorts of ways. So a lot of fun that we can have there manipulating how things are actually happening. On the fabric side, I think just have a look at what you're wearing at the moment and try and understand the fabrics that you're wearing. Some are softer or harder, lighter, heavier, looser, tighter. And from the scientific work that we're doing at the moment, we're really looking at different sorts of fabric structures and what effect that has on how the fibres are coming out. So what we do know is that the looser fabrics, so the fleece-like fabrics, like this horrible example here, they let go of a lot of fibres when the product is quite new. But on the tighter structures, so things that are a lot closer together, actually, the older the product gets, the more the fibres are actually coming out. So that's a really valuable piece of work that I've got some students working on for me at the moment. So hopefully when this comes out, we'll be able to give brands such as Finisterre more information about how their product developers and their designers actually develop product to be the best it possibly can be. How we colour a fabric is really quite interesting to me, because if you think about our domestic washing machines and we think about the fibres that are coming out, we basically have a vessel, we put water in it, we put clothes in it, and we put a detergent of a certain sort into it. When we colour fabrics, we do pretty much the same thing, but on a mass scale. We have vessels, we put fabric in, we put water in, we put chemicals, various dyes and things in, we agitate it. So you can imagine here what an effect it's actually having on the materials and the fibres actually coming out. And then on the finishing level, there's many different ways that we can finish a fabric. I mean, Hanley was speaking about the great durable kind of Finisterre product earlier, and there's a lot of waterproof product. We know that chemicals are needing to be added to technical performance wear to make it perform as we need to. We can do the same thing to stop microfibers coming out. We can add chemistry to it. But my feeling is that we need to be more kind of environmentally friendly and actually look at it through mechanical ways. So that, again, there's different ways that we can have a look at how we get the performance into the fabric. And then there's one here that you might need to stand up to see this. I'm just going to do one thing that really concerns me about making the garments is when we actually cut the fabrics. Just the nature of cutting a fabric, if it's of a certain construction, just causes the fibres to just come out. So if you think about the countries and the factories and places where these garments are being made, you can imagine not just the pollution that's going into the water, but the air pollution. And these are things that we need to be totally aware of, again, is the 360-degree approach to how we're designing and developing product. So I'll keep it down here so you can just see how the fibres just fall out. Which, you know, there's many different ways that we can actually make garments to stop that from happening. So here is where we're looking at lots of different ways of doing it. And then, I'm just going to click through to the next one, actually. Last but not least is when we're looking at this, is to look at it in a closed loop, in a circular sort of way, because we're not anymore designing products in this linear start to end. We need to ensure that we're actually looking at the full life cycle of the products. What really worries me is we know that the older the garments get, the more the microfibers actually come out of them. We also know, as a Western country, we ship a lot of our second-hand clothing to developing countries. Now, with those fibers coming out more easily, the older the product gets, what we're actually doing is shipping our microfiber issue from our countries where we can just about cope with it to developing countries that just do not have the infrastructure to cope with it. And when we talk about our beautiful oceans, our beautiful environment, it's all connected. We're not in separate worlds, we're in the same world. So all that we're doing is shipping our mess to another country that can't deal with it, and it gets into the ocean somewhere else. But I think, you know, with all the kind of gloomy faces around, you know, the message I'm trying to get to you today is there is light at the end of the tunnel. We can produce that gold star product. It's about working together. It's about collaborating. It's about supporting each other. And I think with the amount of people we've got working on fantastic things in this room today, it's about how do we connect to ensure that every part of making the garment, whether it's raw material, whether it's making the yarn or the fabric, we actually do it in the best possible way possible. And I'm working across the industry now with a consortium of different brands, retailers, and supply chain partners, and we're working on the same agenda to work towards that gold star product. So thank you very much. I'll be around for questions and come and see me at the back of the room, but thank you.